Welcome back to the Chasing Happiness podcast, an honest podcast about finding happiness, what it really means, and the process of getting there. My name is Crystal, and today I am joined by author Vernon P. Davis Jr. He's written a book called Uncomfortable Peace, Stepping Outside My Comfort Zone to Naturally Beat Type 2 Diabetes, which I have all kinds of questions about. But before we get into the actual book, do you want to give yourself a brief introduction to the Chasing Happiness community?
Crystal, thank you. Again, my name is Vernon. A 30-something-year-old married man, a father of one, and just on a daily mission to obtain happiness for the day. I try not to live off of yesterday's happiness, but I use it to motivate me in my pursuit of happiness for today.
That's awesome. And I love the idea of this book, if nothing else, because I think right now, especially over the last couple of years, a lot of people have started thinking more about their health because of COVID and this crazy world that we're living in. Yeah. So first of all, how did you end up on this journey and actually writing about it?
Well, it was an accident. In my opinion, it really started, from a young age, developing a food addiction. It was a learned behavior, learning to cope with stress and the unpleasantries of life. By stuffing my face. That was the one thing that can keep me calm and soothe me, in uncomfortable situations. And, as I got older, it just spiraled out of control, having more access to food, having, different jobs where money was coming in that, I was responsible for and accounted for, and I could, use it however I saw fit. Sure. And, once I got married, things, changed for me some. My wife was, very much on me about, finding out the status of my health. And, I was against it for so many years. And one day, she really convinced me to go to the doctor. I went to the doctor and found out I was type 2 diabetic. And, so many emotions, so much frustration. And, I gathered myself and went on this journey to reverse it naturally after being prescribed a certain medication that I never used. And, once I got 4 or 5 months into it, I said, hey, man, I'm seeing some amazing results. I need to document this and be able to share it with the world.
That's awesome. And I think in my personal experience, I have never had diabetes, but I know people who have, and there seems to be almost sort of a shock moment because it's kind of like based on the conversations I've had with the people I know, it's this, well, I seemed to be doing okay. I didn't know I had a problem kind of moment until they actually have an official diagnosis. Did you go through that as well?
Oh, sort of. So it was a shock. I was, it was not a pleasant surprise the day I was diagnosed. In fact, I asked the doctor to repeat himself because I just couldn't believe what I heard. But prior to the diagnosis, I had been experiencing a number of symptoms that I had no explanation for. And so logically, it made sense. Emotionally, it didn't. It was very frustrating. But, I did have, a slew of symptoms prior to that diagnosis. And, it kind of brought everything full circle. Like, hey, you've been experiencing these things because of type 2 diabetes, and you have type 2 diabetes because of food addiction. That's what I had to conclude on my own.
And I think that's kind of a big thing, right? The acknowledgement that you were acknowledging that there was something going on, but then being present enough to be willing to make the change. Like you said, you were prescribed a medication, but you didn't actually take it. You did all of these other things to make the change that you needed to make, which, we kind of live in this society where it's like you have a problem, pop a pill, move on. So that I'm assuming that was a bit of an adjustment for you.
A good portion of it was a huge adjustment. The one thing that wasn't necessarily a big adjustment was cutting out soda and juice. That was a decision I made, moments after walking out of the doctor's office, and I haven't had any since. But everything else was an adjustment. Being intentional about moving my body and working out to get a good sweat in a short amount of time with no gym equipment. I was actually working out on my patio with a trainer virtually, being intentional of going to the grocery store or my local market to purchase specific foods that were going to be beneficial for my body, but that did not necessarily at the time taste that good or were desirable. Sure. Forcing myself to drink, a certain amount of water per day. And then, as time went on, those things became what I desired because I was so, having it so consistent in my daily regimen that I had to learn to do. It became a desire to have these things, and it really helped shift my mindset towards what I put in my body.
I think, huge. You touched on something about it taking a little bit of time, right? It wasn't something that happened overnight. It took you a while to form the habit. It took you a while for it to become a part of the process. And I think when we're talking about whether it's health related or just mindset or anything about life, we live in this weird social media world now where everyone seems to think, well, everything should be instant. And if it's not happening instantly, it's not worth the effort. So for people who are listening and maybe they do want to make some sort of a life change, whether it's health related, whether it has to do with anything else, what advice would you give them?
Yeah, if it's instantaneous, it's not beneficial in 99% of the cases of things in life in general. If you don't have to work for it, if you don't have to set aside time and apply a good amount of dedication, it's probably not beneficial to have or hold on to. I mean, if we think about our health, for example, for those of us that have or have had negative health results or health screenings, those negative results didn't come overnight. And so to get well, to get better, to at least break even in a sense, it's not going to happen immediately. It's going to take time. And the more time and effort you put into something, the more you'll enjoy the results, but also the more you'll want to hold on to those results when they do come, because they will come. You put in the work, you're going to get the results.
Yes, absolutely. And I think personally, that's the thing that drives me, right? When you finally start to see the results, it's like, well, now I want to push harder. Now I want to go further. So I'm imagining because this was health related for you, it was even more of that kind of, now I need to push a little further. Now I need to keep trying, because you would have seen a drastic change in your health as you went through this, I assume.
Yeah, for the most part. A huge part of my motivation, really wasn't for self. I mean, I had been working out prior to the pandemic, and I was kind of doing it just to say, hey, I was active. Paid for a trainer, just to say, hey, I have a trainer. I'm working out with someone that's specialized in this field. But my eating habits did not support the effort that I was striving to put in the gym or on my own. And so, what really was big for me was the motivation of being a recently married man and not wanting to leave my wife at an early age, at least for something that was actually in my control. And so, if I was gonna go, it had to be something was just out of my control, not something that I had control over. And then a month into this journey, we found out that we were expecting our first child. We now have our baby boy. He'll be 10 months here in a few weeks. But when we found out we were expected, that was just that extra push that I needed to say, hey, I have to continue to take this seriously, not only for myself, not only for my wife, but for our unborn child, who I want to have his biological father in his life, being me.
Right. Well, congratulations. Having a baby is awesome.
Thank you.
Have you found that since you've had the baby, because I actually am in the place in my life where everyone around me is having children. So all of my friends are having children. I don't have any personally, but I understand the struggle of new parents. So have you found that it's a little more difficult now that you're a new parent to keep up with that regimen and that routine that you've built?
Crystal, that's a great question. And I do dedicate a chapter of my book towards that. I actually regressed, the first 3 months of my child being here, not really harping on having a schedule, kind of just, taking it minute by minute, just trying to survive and make sure that he's, doing well. And so, 3 months after he had been alive, I went to the doctor and got a negative report as related to my progress. And once I saw those numbers, once I got that report, my wife and I, we sat down and we had a pretty good discussion on, what led to these numbers, things that I could change immediately and how I could still, provide for the family as far as time and effort and, being present while also making sure I take care of myself. And so the first 3 months, it was difficult. The following month, it was difficult with, being intentional. But after that, it's been a pretty good regimen for us here, 6 months later.
That's awesome. And I'm glad you touched on that, because I think what happens in my experience with my clients is I will hear from people, well, I've sort of fallen off the wagon. Something has happened. And why would I bother now? There's no point in getting back on track, but it's really never too late, no matter what you're talking about. Even if it is a little bit of a struggle, even if you have to make adjustments, maybe you were going to the gym 5 days a week and then you went to none. Maybe don't start at 5 days a week. Maybe just start at one again, or whatever the steps are to get you there. Right.
Right. Yeah, slowly getting back into it. Just slowly getting back into it. And it'll ramp up as time passes.
So, from a health standpoint, now that you've sort of not just written the book, but been through this journey, I assume, been in touch with a number of specialists and doctors and all that fun stuff. Have you found that people, because you're speaking openly about your journey, that people are coming to you and asking you for advice on how to do this for themselves?
Yes, and been very fortunate in that. When I decided to go against, what was normal, in a sense, I was hoping that others would, be brave and reach out, but also, be willing to accept my offer to aid, as I see others what they have online and what they say that they're going through, and it's been beautiful, seeing people change their lives in a matter of months, from the comfort of their home, just making, some different decisions and slowly making more. It's been a beautiful thing to witness. There's a young lady, she's around 50 years old, and she was able to drop 1.2 points in her A1C level in just 3 months, just from the comfort of her home, changing how she viewed, her life, changing her lifestyle and how she viewed food and, the different things that she put in her body.
That's such a big deal. I think, I'm in Canada, and what I find here is because we have quote unquote free healthcare, people take their health a little bit more for granted because we don't have to stress about, like, if something goes wrong going to the hospital, how we're going to pay it. We don't have to think about those things. And I often think to myself, I wonder if that makes us a little complacent in just not making our health a priority, because we don't have to, essentially. But COVID has kind of given everyone here a wake-up call. Because we have a free healthcare system, it was already at like 95% capacity before COVID, right? So now people are thinking, well, if something does happen, I should probably be taking control of this part of my life. And so that has been kind of magical. Certainly not to the degree that you're talking about with the clients that you're working with, but it's been kind of magical to watch people. And I think it definitely has given, I would say, a good part of this particular country, at least a wake up call of, we, especially in this society that we live in, we focus a lot on, we have to go to work, we have to earn the money, we have to live this certain lifestyle, but we're really not being present in the moment. We're not paying attention to the things we need emotionally and physically and spiritually. So I love that you're putting all of this out there into the world, because I think it's so needed right now.
Oh, thank you, Crystal. And I'm in agreement with you. I think, as professionals, we can get caught up in the hustle and bustle, especially for those of us that work for an hourly wage and not a salary. I was one that, when I was working last year, I wanted to get as much overtime as possible to be able to maintain or move to the next level in life, so to speak. And, one of the things that I had to learn is that, overtime isn't everything. Working on holidays to get, time and a half isn't everything. This year, my approach is, I'm going to take the time off that I'm allotted, and I'm going to take all of it off, not only for my physical health, but for my mental health, for my spiritual health, for the health of my household, in efforts of being present and not missing out on those precious moments just to make a few extra dollars that, are going to be, allocated somewhere outside of the home anyway. Right. As soon as it comes in. And so, I think, for the journey that I've been, I thought it was unfortunate, but the journey that I've been fortunate to be on, I'm just having a different approach to my health holistically, spiritual, physical, mental, inside and out.
And I want to touch on that holistic approach that you're talking about, because as I was saying earlier, I think we live in a society where people are like, something is bothering me, I'm going to pop a pill and move forward. So what was it like for you? Like, obviously you got this diagnosis, you were told you need to take this medication. Did you instantly think, well, there has to be another way? Or did you start doing research? Like, how did you end up on the holistic approach?
Yeah, great question. So in the moment that I was diagnosed and the medication was prescribed, I immediately thought, man, what are the side effects? Because where I grew up, I knew diabetes to be known as the sugars. And if you had these sugars, you lost limbs, you lost your eyesight, your quality of life just went down the drain as the days passed. And some of those people that I knew were on medication, and there was no better for them. It was more of a maintaining. And that's one of the things the doctor mentioned. You take this medication, make a few changes in what you eat, you'll be able to manage this illness. And I'm thinking to myself, no, I don't want to manage this illness. I want to get rid of it as much as possible. And so, on my way out, as I was in tears and as I was making my phone calls to relatives and to my accountability partners to let them know what was going on as we, developed a regimen. I started doing self-research to educate myself on not only the illness, but the medication that was prescribed. And, I saw that the side effects were not worth trying. And I didn't want to put myself in that position and make things worse for myself. And, when I realized through my self-education that, this chronic illness was developed because of the things that I was doing, I knew in that moment that I need to not do those things and do other things to better my situation, to give myself the best chance of being healthier and reversing it naturally. And, fortunately, I was able to do that. It took some time, but I was able to do that.
I love that. And I love that you say it took time, because I think time is definitely something we don't give ourselves enough of, especially when we're trying to make big life changes. And what you're talking about essentially is a big life change. You spend, let's say, 30 years having a specific habit, whether that's, a Coke after work every day or whatever it happens to be. Getting rid of that takes time, because it took time to form the habit. So I love that you touched on that. And I wonder, because you've been on this journey, what inspires you now?
So in addition to my wife, in addition to my son and, the rest of my family, now it's all about getting stronger. I mean, I've hit every goal that I've had for myself with the assistance of my accountability partners, Tony and Breon. Tony's my personal trainer. He's my business partner. He's a great friend. Breon's my herbalist. And he helps me point me in the direction of more fruits, vegetables, and herbs to look into, to consider adding to my daily regimen. So in addition to that, now it's about, just getting stronger. I'm not trying to look a certain way, but, I try to challenge myself to reach repetitions and different exercises that I personally don't think I'll ever obtain. Just so I have something to strive for, because it'll keep me going. If I tell myself I can't do something, the other side of me says, no, you can. And we're going to keep going until we get there, regardless if it takes a week or a year or 10 years. We're going to fight to get there. And, so that's a huge part of my motivation. In addition to that, as I travel to speak, I want to be able to, advertise myself, because at this point, I am my product. I'm, striving to sell a book that is very detailed and that has principles in it that are applicable to all facets of life, for sure. And I have before pictures of, how I looked and how I carried myself. And I don't want to ever resemble those before pictures again in my life. And so I am my product. When I stand in front of someone, what they see has to be motivating to the eyes for them to want to hear what I'm saying.
And because you did mention that, for everyone who is listening, if they want to engage with you, I am going to, of course, put the links to the book and all of your social media and everything in the show notes for the episode. But what's the best way for people to get in touch with you, follow you, reach out?
The very best way is Facebook. I'm on there very, very often through the day. Second to that is Instagram. And then, my emails on our company website. If there are, more personal questions that, one wants to have a discussion back and forth with the email thread, accessible there as well. But Facebook is my primary means of engagement.
Perfect. So again, I will put that link as well as all the others in the show notes for the episode. But before I let you go, I typically ask my guests who come on the podcast a few questions. Are you game to answer a few questions?
Let's go.
Perfect. So the first question is, if you could go back and give yourself a piece of advice, what would it be?
Ooh, at any age?
Any age.
I would go back to age, I think it's like 9 years old, when the food addiction habit began. And I would tell younger me, calm down. It's going to be okay. That's all I would tell him. It's going to be okay. Calm down. It's going to be okay. I think that would have changed the trajectory of my life. But who knows? But that's the advice that I would give younger me at the age of 9.
I love that. I actually, as you're saying that, I'm picturing to myself like what age would I go back to? Because I would give myself that same advice for different reasons. So what age would I go back to? I love that. Okay. The next question is, if you could sit down and have a cup of coffee with anyone, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
In all honesty, I would like to sit down and have a conversation with Oprah Winfrey. She is a very influential figure throughout the world. From what I've seen, I've seen like old, not necessarily documentaries, but shows that kind of detail her life and her journey. And it just seems like a lot of people love Oprah for who she is. And I've, been privy to some of the projects that she's worked on and, even doing more research on her, seeing that a lot of things she's doing behind the scenes outside of entertainment. She's very big on loving and helping others. And, I'd love to sit down and have a conversation with her. She can have the coffee. I'll just drink my water.
I love that. I love that because she's on my list too, because I want to ask her about the school she started in Africa and how she made that decision and sort of because being the age that I am, I don't have children. All of my friends are having children. And so I kind of feel a little bit of a kinship with her. Like I want to have an impact on the younger generation, but I don't know how to do that when I'm not having kids of my own. Yeah. And so I have all these questions about why she chose that and what it was. And so I love that you picked her because she's 100% on my list too. Okay. The last question is, how would you define happiness?
Happiness is a state of mind, regardless of the situation that, at least for me, that I'm in. I have to, condition myself to think that, hey, regardless of the situation I'm in it. It didn't take me out, whether it's, pleasurable or not. I'm still here. I'm able to feel, I'm able to have whatever emotions that I have. I'm still drawing breath from this earth. And that's a reason to celebrate, to be excited and to be happy, to push through and tell myself it's okay to be happy in the moment as I work through whatever it is that I'm going through. So it's a state of mind that, I strive to have each day that I wake up.
I love that. And I think, it is something we strive for. This is one of the reasons I love the question, because some people think like we shouldn't be chasing happiness. And my thought process is we all chase it, whether we want to acknowledge it or not. It's just how are we chasing it? And is it driving us or is it actually the thing that's like steering the ship? And how are we assessing that as we go? Because I think if I had asked you that question, let's say 3 years ago, your answer probably would have been very different than it is now, right?
Right.
Yeah. So that's one of the reasons why I love it, because I think it does. It totally changes depending on the day and what you're going through and what kind of experience you're having in this wonderful life.
Yes.
This has been amazing. I have loved having you on. Thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, yeah, Crystal, thank you so much for having me. It's definitely been a pleasure. And I've enjoyed the entire conversation. Can't wait to hear it, play it back.
Thank you. And for everyone who is listening, obviously, again, I will put in the show notes all the links and everything. But Vernon, if you ever write another book, if you ever have anything else, you are welcome to come back and join me for another conversation on the podcast anytime.
Oh, awesome. Well, I'll probably be with you here at the end of the summer.
Okay. Well, there we go. I love it. Look at that. People on the podcast are getting a sneak peek behind the scenes. They'll know who's coming and who's not. I love it. Thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you all for listening. I appreciate you coming back week after week. After 6 years of doing this, I'm still shocked and amazed that you come and you listen to these conversations every week. So thank you so much for listening. Have a wonderful week, and we will chat with you guys next week. Bye for now.